right, so thank you all very much for staying on this long. I know it's the end of the conference, so I'll try and keep this quite easy, not too much science and lots of nice pictures. So we've seen in this session today about the importance of new analytical techniques, improving the resolution, the accuracy and precision of our analyses. However, what I'd like to discuss with you is the actual importance of your sample preparation also, because if you don't get the sample preparation right, then it doesn't matter how accurate and how low a detection limit your machine can go to, you're still not going to get great data. So what I'd like to discuss with you is how high voltage breakage and high voltage fragmentation of rocks can help your science. And then I will briefly go through looking at zircon geochronology with some apatite, garnet, recovering metallic particles from rocks for study, micropaleontology, and then summarize the work that we've been doing. So my company SELFRAG produces high voltage rock fragmenters, and we're represented by USI in China. And all of the work done, apart from the micropaleontology section, has been done on some of our equipment in the last few years. So a quick introduction on high voltage breakage. What we do is we essentially put our rock between two electrodes, and we apply a high potential across these electrodes. And basically what happens is that in between this strong electrical field, our minerals begin to polarize slightly, and we get a charge imbalance developing at the contact between our mineral of interest and the matrix. And this charge imbalance is attractive to an electrical discharge, and the result is, when we have a discharge, it goes around the mineral, isolating it and breaking it away from the main body of the rock. The result of this is that we can get quite pure, clean mineral separates without crushing the rock, without abrading the material at all. So a little commercial plug here. The SELFRAG lab system that we have is the only industrialized commercial system on the market that is completely self-contained, that does not require large fences around. We have 3 installed in China at the moment, so if you have colleagues at these departments, or if you're from these departments yourself, please try and have a play around with the machine and see what it can do for you. It's extremely quiet, easy to clean, so minimal cross-contamination, and we can work in larger amounts of around 1 kilo or 1 to 5 grams at a time. So, looking at zircon, very rarely will the zircon you get be nice and perfect and euhedral. It's often the case where we have this quite wide variety of different zircon shapes with quite complex structures. We have overgrowth structures, some exsolution textures here, and formation of zircon in proximity to other minerals. When you crush things mechanically with a jaw crusher, you can lose a lot of this texture because it's just so aggressive. You're compressing your material and breaking it. And you can, if you begin to lose a lot of these overgrowth textures, then you're not getting the full story from your mineral. This is where SELFRAG can come in. So this is the most text on on any slide, so it gets easier from here. The take-home message from this is we can see this is the weight percent and the grain diameter here, and we can see that SELFRAG has a larger grain diameter from recovered zircon than any of these other tested pieces of equipment. And this is a study done by the Danish Geological Survey in 2010. And this shows the same here. We have a number of zircons and the cross-sectional surface area. And we see SELFRAG is much higher. Roughly twice as large zircons come out of high voltage breakage than traditional mechanical breaking. And this applies to other minerals too, so titanite, rutile. You get much larger, cleaner minerals out of our process. And this shows the same basically, including for apatite, a study from Sperner in the TU Freiburg University in Germany. So we can see with mechanical fragmentation, Apatite is deporting to the finer fraction, and so is zircon. With electrical fragmentation, the apatite and zircon are both staying coarse, meaning larger grains, which you can hopefully do more with. So in conclusion, for zircon, we get coarser, bigger crystals out that you can hopefully extract more data from. We break the crystals less, meaning you keep delicate structures. And if you want to investigate surface features, you can do that a lot better using high voltage breakage. It's also possible to extract single crystals and mount them and do 3D studies of these also. These are some images from 2007 and 2009 from Daniela Rubato in the University of Bern, and these were taken 2 years ago at the USGS, who have recently purchased one of our pieces of equipment. So looking at garnet now, if you want to extract age data from garnet, it can be quite complex, because as you can see from the cover of Science magazine in 1989, it's been a long time since a mineral was on the cover of Science, there are a lot of inclusions within it, and if you want to get an accurate age date, you have to try and remove these inclusions if possible. Having them within can change the isochron and give you a false age, either a falsely young or a falsely old age for your garnet, depending on which inclusions are within there. Current state-of-the-art technology is physical grinding. This is a little bit small on your screens, but hopefully you can see, or where you drill out the sections you're interested in, sieve them, and then do hand picking. Naturally, with the mechanical breakage and the mechanical crushing of your material, you're breaking the inclusions down very small, making them harder to remove. The alternative is chemical separation, where you basically dissolve all of your garnet. This presentation is from Ethan Baxter, presented this year at GSA conference in Seattle. And basically this method, to try and get rid of all your inclusions, you end up with just your garnet core and often lose up to around 90% of your mineral, which is really bad. So in hoping we could improve this, you can see the amount of work that's gone into trying to develop better methods of removing inclusions from garnet. And I have a proposal which I actually worked with Ethan Baxter on. So we have our rock here with our garnet. We put it into the SELFRAG vessel to liberate the garnets. This is less than a minute processing to remove this. We put our sample into the micro vessel, which is around this size. And around 10 or 15 seconds later, we end up with a nice, clean mineral separate like this. So we can see we have possibly zircon crystals here. I'm not a geochronologist, so I don't know exactly what, I assume these are zircon from the reflectance and luster. And we have our pure garnet phases here, which can then be separated out. The advantage of this is that we're keeping the zircons large, so you can use them as well as the garnet. Unlike the dissolution methods where you either lose the garnet and keep the zircon, or keep the zircon, lose the garnet, here you can retain both. If you're looking at metallic phases, traditional crushing and grinding will tend to smear the metallic particles and make them long and flat and generally destroy any kind of crystal structure. If you have a disc mill, you can get almost cigar shapes where the gold becomes rolled around, and these are essentially useless for any kind of grain morphology study. If you wanted to raster across these and look at isotopic changes in your particle as it's grown. Here are some samples that we've self-fragged basically. This is a study from the Geological Survey of Finland, where we brought out these 20 and kind of around 200-300 micron electron particles, and some native copper that's been recovered from this rock up in, this was either Alaska or the Yukon, I can't remember, from, I think it was Alaska, from the United States Geological Survey. But we are retaining the grain shape with high voltage breakage, where a lot of this would be lost with traditional breakage. If you're interested in microfossils, also useful for dating of rocks, not chemically, but with the structure of the teeth. Traditional ways of getting these out of the rock is by dissolving the material which is time consuming. You either need citric or acetic acid, you dissolve away the matrix and hope that you don't dissolve your samples. Even more difficult if you have a mudstone or you're trying to recover the fossils from there. You need to freeze and then thaw your sample repeatedly to try and introduce fractures within the rock to actually break this apart. All of this can take weeks to months. I've been told by people working in this field, and you still end up with damage to the fossil. With high voltage breakage, we can actually break down the rock and get these fossils out of the rock within seconds, generally up to a minute, depending on the amount of rock we're processing. We still break some because these are very delicate features and delicate structures. However, we are liberating the same amount and doing in seconds what current state-of-the-art takes weeks to months to achieve. So in conclusion, there are a lot of advantages to using high voltage breakage to actually fragment your rocks. Hopefully you can take a lot more information out of the rocks, you can get larger mineral separates, which you can do new science with. So the aim of this presentation has really been to give you a few ideas about what we can do and hopefully stimulate you into thinking about how can this possibly help your own research, what can be achieved. And really, the system's only been commercially available for the past 10 years. So we're only just learning about what we can do and what advantages we can have in different fields. So if you have any interesting or difficult to process rocks, I'm happy to discuss them at some point. So thank you for listening.
Any question? Any question?
Oh, great, thank you.
Thank you.